The COVID-19 pandemic has had untold effects on businesses across the world. This week, we're talking to local company Martello Technologies about the challenges that it's facing and how its technology is helping other companies to weather the storm. That's this week on Techopia Live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Techopia Live. I'm your host, Craig Lord, the editor here at Techopia. We are once again remote, and you know why. It's because of the coronavirus pandemic that is still affecting everyone's daily lives. I assume most of you are watching us working remotely from home if you're able to. And hopefully you're staying safe, practicing physical distancing and good hygiene habits to try and stem the curve of COVID-19 as it continues to ravage a lot of countries around the world. And the impacts are being felt very closely in the tech community. A lot of operations disrupted, and we want to talk to some of the entrepreneurs, the leaders, and the experts in the field right now who can help us to navigate this minefield. So that being said, this week we're joined by the CEO of Martello Technologies, Mr. John Proctor. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Craig.
And joining us as well from one of our great Techopia sponsors, Perley-Robertson, Hill & McDougall, is Mr. Rob Kingan. Rob, I want to dive right in with you to start because a lot of people want to hear from lawyers right now. They're very unsure of what to do right now. So could you maybe give us a little bit of a sample of what are you hearing from clients? What are the big challenges that you're hearing right now in this pandemic?
Sure. Thanks, Craig. As we've seen, the public policy measures put in place to contain the spread of the COVID-19 is resulting in significant operational disruption for many companies. Our firm has gone virtual in a matter of days, so I've been dealing with that. But the issues that have come up with clients on a day-to-day basis since the measures that have been put in place are staff quarantines, social distancing, the supply chain failures, unavailable inventories, and reduction in demand from customers. This is going to put a strain on cash flow and all kinds of different areas. I'm still working on a number of M&A and financings that came in. We're in the pipeline prior to the kind of shutdown, but the other questions have been employment matters. Unfortunately dealing with some of my colleagues dealing with layoffs and benefit entitlements. In the last couple of days, the definition of what essential services is, which is pretty much everything, and preparing corporate policies on emergency communications, flexible work locations, things like that. That's what. And it's hard to say, as you mentioned, like things are such in flux, it's hard to say what is going to be the next questions that come in the door. But I think right now my group is working on these M&As that are in the pipeline, and eventually people will have to come out of their holes and from home and continue to carry on business. I think people have just been bunkering down for the last week and a bit, but new business has got to occur, and we can talk about financing a little later.
Yeah, definitely will touch back on that. But interesting to hear about the mix of issues, a combination of emergency responses on one end, and then trying to get the everyday business maintained, and even the big deals that were right on the precipice. You can only imagine how many midnight board meetings are being called right now to say, what do we do this week? What do we execute on this? Do we wait? Do we cancel it outright? Those kinds of things. Amazing to even fathom what's going on there. And I'm sure these are conversations, John, that you are facing at Martello Technologies on a regular basis. Can you give us a sense inside this kind of tech company? What are the big challenges that you're facing at your company?
So I think if you look at sort of the key challenges, as Rob said, we've gone to a distributed workforce, right? Everyone's working from home. And there's a bit of a dichotomy there. We've had people who've always worked from home going, So what? This isn't new. I've worked from home for years. I'm down in southern US as part of the Martello team, but they're also guiding other people who this is new for. And again, when you're dealing with that as a team, everyone's different. And particularly with this virus, you've got some people who have, family members who are high risk. You have some people who have elderly family members they're looking after and associated challenges. And then the general challenges of being home with kids and the spouse. And the spouse might also be working from home. So you're now sharing, the challenges of both trying to work simultaneously while look after children. So really for, initial focus is sort of getting sure the team settles, making sure, as Rob said, when they hunker down, they can still, do what they need to do, but making sure people understand it's results driven. It's not about being there at 8 and finishing at 4. It's about outcomes and making sure we can still achieve the outcomes that we need while adjusting to this new sort of operating tempo, new being at home tempo. And that for a lot of people is a bit of a culture shift in that respect. And then if I go back to sort of the business of Martello, once you stabilize sort of those pieces, and it's never going to be completely stable. And I think, that's one aspect of it. But we're also seeing an uptake on inquiries related to remote work. So it's not that we're sitting at home bored, twiddling our thumbs, wondering, okay, when can we go back to work? No, we're working flat out. We've got custom feature requests, advice on best practice remote work. And if you think about what Martello does, we help IT teams deal with delivering a user experience, and that user experience is now spread out to the home environment. And when people are using voice, video conferencing, Office 365, all these tools that we are now absolutely depending on for remote work, that's where we fit. So again, we've had literally requests for, advice and guidance from a US brewer on how they can use our equipment and whether they need more equipment, to a UK university of could we add a new feature to one of our software products so they can work more efficiently and effectively and deliver classes from home. So it is sort of one of those aspects of saying, balancing the company. I think what's interesting right now is the novelty value of working from home is going to wear off fairly quickly. And we're settling into this new cadence of, call it Groundhog Day, call it getting up and working. The other thing I'm getting a little bit of a feed from is the dichotomy of Ottawa. We've got some folks who are either government department or teachers or similar going, I'm bored. Right? They're saying, what should I be watching on Netflix? How do I entertain myself while I'm stuck at home? And then we've got our guys saying, we're saying, hey, listen, you're at home, but you shouldn't be working 12 hours a day. You need to take breaks. You need to go take a walk. You need to get fresh air because we're working hard. So I think that's the other challenge we're seeing a bit is, there's almost a cultural divide with folks who are sitting at home wondering what to do, and folks like Martello who are, working harder than ever.
Really interesting dichotomy to play out, but also Martello's still one way or another sitting at that intersection, because if you're not working and you're streaming Netflix, or you are working and you're doing video conferencing or incessant work on Office 365, a lot of bandwidth demands out there right now. And
absolutely.
Yeah, something Martello knows well.
Yeah, it was interesting. We had an infographic, and we've used it probably for the last 6-7 months to sort of explain to the investment community and others, this is what Martello does. And it was effectively, imagine a picture of an office and then, little bubbles coming out of what do people do in the office. We've now changed that to effectively an Ottawa apartment building or a Toronto apartment building, where in that apartment building, 45-50% of the people are trying to do video voice conference. Some are trying to stream, the new Netflix series, but it's putting a strain on that, bandwidth capability of that apartment building. So it's taken that what we described as an office problem and made it the home problem. And what we actually did, we made a tool available. We made it available for free. It's called UC Score. It's actually at ucscore.com. And it's a web-based test that simulates voice and video calls. And by that, it does synthetic transactions. So it's not just throwing data packets. It's actually doing full simulation synthetic calls to make sure it looked like. So it's kind of like speed test, but specifically for voice and video, which makes really specific demands on your network. So we've put that out for free, so people can actually say, how much of this can I do, and then can I do voice and video? Can I have one video, one voice? And again, we'll let people use that tool for free, because again, it gives them an idea of, like you said, that bandwidth capacity and what they can do.
Mm-hmm. And almost the blurring of the boundaries there between what was residential real estate and commercial real estate. Like you said, the home is now the office. So really interesting insights. Obviously, Martello, like I said, an interesting perspective right now on this whole pandemic response. I want to go back over to Rob for a moment and talk about one of the issues that a lot of businesses are facing, which is cash flow and access to financing right now. Rob, in the middle of this pandemic, is there still access to financing available? Are companies able to find what they need to stay afloat and stay financed right now?
Yeah, Craig, it's hard to say on the equity financings right now. Like we're working on a few closings, again, predated the pandemic. I haven't seen a lot of talk about any new ones. So I think that might come down to the fact that a lot of that originates, and John can speak to this, like when you're speaking to potential investors, a lot of face-to-face meetings, and now we can't do that. So it might take a while before the next ones come down the pipeline. I mean, bank financing still going on. We're working on, institutional and private lenders are still lending money. I haven't seen how that's going to affect the lending rates yet, especially from the private lenders, but those are still happening. I think there's going to be a lot of tweaks to their contracts about force majeure clauses and material adverse changes, just given what's going on. So there might be some actual legal work and not just churning out the same Preston documents that the banks use, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I'm curious about from the Martello perspective is not only are you a company that has to now deal with remote working, all this kind of stuff, but you're a publicly traded company on the TSX Venture there, John. How is this affecting how you approach stuff like regulatory and filing requirements? You have to give like a guidance for each year, and there are companies out there saying, who knows what kind of revenues we're going to have coming in. We can't predict our customers. We can't predict how this will impact ourselves. So what are the big challenges you're dealing with from a regulatory requirement right now?
So really not much from a regulatory requirement. I mean, the TSX has given sort of some guidance on, changes on regulatory requirements and breathing space, etc. But that doesn't really change. If you're doing Q4 results, if you're doing sort of, IFRS accounting, all that's going to stay. That's really not the issue. I think what we're actually seeing, though, and again, where our stock has been hit like everybody else's, is I think shareholders now saying who's really going to be there when the dust settles, who's going to got stability and predictability. And again, we're lucky. We worked really hard on getting 90% recurring revenues, so we have that stability of saying, no matter what, next month we will have X recurring revenue, and if growth slows, that's fine, because next month we will have X recurring revenue. It's much harder for companies that are sort of on one-time solutions. They only eat what they can kill on a monthly basis, and that's not us. I mean, yes, we're looking at growth and we're seeing that, but again, we're also spending time with folks like Gartner to understand what's top of mind for CIOs at the moment, what's happening, where are they going. And I think that's really, really important, is you've got to stay really close to your customers now, really understand what their needs are, what their challenges are, and adapt accordingly. Because there is a hint of Darwinism going on right now, which is, if you don't adapt, you may not survive. So being able to look at this, but at the same time, if you didn't have, the strong team, the strong recurring revenues, then this will be much, much harder. And I'm extremely grateful for Martello's strength in terms of team. And the folks who are stepping up, and the Martello team as a whole, who've sort of grabbed onto this. And we have folks who are organizing social events online, folks who are giving out tips every day of what to do if you're stuck at home and working from home, and guidance to how to work from home. And these are not sort of mandated by me. These are things where people have said, no, I'm part of the Martello family. I'm going to step in and provide those recommendations. So the culture will absolutely play a part of it. And if you didn't have that culture already, now you're in, as you said, you're in this virtual world where we're not going to connect, person to person, face to face. If you don't have that culture already, it becomes really hard to generate it now. But at the same time, if you didn't have that stability of recurring revenues, it's going to be really hard to generate that level of stability now. So I think that's where we're seeing some of the work coming in, is reassuring investors, and we've done quite a lot of reach out investor relations work over the last week, and trying to reinforce our position and where we are. But at the same time is spending a lot of time gathering information about what the future could hold, and really, again, what's top of mind for CIOs going forward. And a good example will be, as they move in this distributed workforce, we see things like Teams, and those sort of tools. And obviously, we're partnered with Mitel that have unified communication solutions in place that allow remote work, and being connected with those guys and already helping them look at how we help with the reliability and performance of those systems means we're in a fairly good spot.
Great examples about how kind of the foundations and in a lot of ways the fundamentals of business are really coming in clutch for companies like a Martello out there, or anyone else has a strong SaaS model potentially with those recurring revenues coming in clutch, like you mentioned there, John. So I think that's probably the best place to cap this conversation. I want to thank both of you so much for coming in. John Proctor, the CEO of Martello Technologies, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Craig.
And we had Robert Kingan from our great sponsors, Perley-Robertson, Hill & McDougall. Thank you so much, Rob, for all your advice today.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks, John.
Before I let everyone else go, I want to take a quick moment and thank some of our other sponsors without whom Techopia Live would not be possible. I want to start with Number Crunch, offering virtual CFO services for SaaS firms. There's TD Bank, offering specialized programs for tech companies. There's the University of Ottawa Faculty of Engineering, creating the next generation of technical talent. There's Stratford Managers, offering services to help you scale up your tech ventures. And of course, we had Rob here today from Perley-Robertson, Hill & McDougall, a leader in business and tech law. Of course, Techopia is not just this fantastic show. We are also available online at obj.ca/Techopia, with daily articles covering Ottawa's tech scene, especially in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. We have also started a new video series on OBJ, Coping with COVID-19, where you can hear from some of the experts, other lawyers from Perley-Robertson, Hill & McDougall, in fact, on their tips to survive, maintain cash flow, talk about contract law. We touched on that maybe briefly today, but we go more in depth with a panel of experts in this series. So go check that out if you get a minute. You can also follow us on social, on Facebook and Twitter at Techopia OTT. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please leave us a like and a comment and subscribe to see more of our Wicked Tech interviews. Apart from that, I just want to thank you very much for joining us for this week's episode of Techopia Live. We will see you next week for the next episode remotely. Thanks for joining us.